Welcome back, everybody. Rob from Crown of Thorns with part 3 of the Flat Earth. Once you go flat, you never go back. So I hope that you've had an opportunity to watch the first 2 videos. I hope that you'll watch this one as well and all the videos that come after. By my estimation, this is going to be at least a 4, maybe a 5-part series. There's that much material to go over. We've talked a lot about the biblical evidence for flat Earth, and we've talked a lot about the true scientific evidence for a flat Earth and how there's no way possible for the Earth to be a sphere, to be a globe. It just cannot happen. And I'm going to give you even more to think about today. Now, here's a word for you: azimuthal equidistant. All right, Gleason's New Standard Map. We all are aware of time zones. For example, I am in the central time zone right now. In Michigan, I'm in the eastern time zone. If I were to go out to California, then that's the Pacific time zone. And then there's also the mountain time zone. There's 4 time zones here just in the United States. And that's because it's not the same time everywhere on Earth. In this world, okay? Whether you're looking at a globe or a flat Earth, there's different times of day, and that's divided by where you are geographically on the Earth. Everybody should understand time zones, all right, or have hopefully a basic understanding of time zones. Basically, if it's 12 o'clock here, as you go further out west, if you go west, it's going to be less in time. But if you're going east, then they're 1 hour ahead of you, 2 hours ahead of you, 3 hours, 4 hours, so on and so forth, depending how far east you would travel. All right. And again, conversely, how the time would go back, -1, -2, -3, -4, the further west you would go. Okay. At any given point in time. All right. So the Mercator map, which is the globe, if you look at that and you look at the time zones, the lines are going to look a lot like this. Which is crazy. Why the jagged lines? That doesn't make any sense. Does light bend and curve like this? No. If you look into it, a lot of cities, counties, whatever, do not participate. So that accommodates for some of it, but also because there's no way that they can make it work unless they make the jagged lines. If you're looking at a globe and a sun that's 93 million miles away, again, the math isn't mathing. Is what it comes down to. However, if you look at a flat Earth map and you look at the time zones, the lines are going to be perfectly straight, because as the sun travels along, there's no problem with that. There's no problem with that at all. It makes much more sense. Time zones make much more sense on a flat Earth than they would on a globe. It can't happen on a globe, in fact. So our pressurized atmosphere, I'm going to go back to that. Like I said, I've been doing kind of bullet points and then slowly building upon each one of those bullet points. And I want to look at pressurized atmosphere again. So how does Earth keep its atmosphere next to the vacuum of space? All right. So we have an atmosphere, obviously. That's why we're able to breathe. All right. And we know that there's different gases which make up our atmosphere. All right. One of which is oxygen. That's pretty important. But gases have to have a container in order to keep them from escaping, right? It's like if you're boiling a pot of water on your stove, you'll see the steam come up. That's water turning into gas, and it just escapes. It just if you wanted to keep that, you're like, I want to collect steam. You have to have a container. You have to put it in something, otherwise it's going to escape. It's going to be gone. Well, the same thing would hold true if you're on Earth and you have an atmosphere, and immediately next to that atmosphere is the vacuum of space. What's going to happen? Logic. Just use basic logic. What would happen to the gases? They would dissipate as they go into the vacuum of space. What would prevent that from happening? Right? That's only logical. Again, the steam coming off the water that you're boiling in a pan, it's escaping. It's going up into the atmosphere. If you want to capture that, you better put a barrier. You could put the lid on there, and you would retain the steam or the gas. All right. The same thing holds true then on a much larger scale. The reason why we have an atmosphere that does not escape into the vacuum of space is because there's a barrier, and we've been talking about that, the dome, the canopy, that 2 to 3 inches thick layer of ice that is above our Earth, that contains the sun, the moon, and the stars, that contains and keeps all of the gases that are essential to our atmosphere from escaping. You have to have a container. That just makes sense. Can soda maintain its pressure outside of a can? Now, I might have, yeah, you know what? I think I do have, if I can get to it. I don't know if I can open this refrigerator door all the way. Give me a minute here. Give me a moment. I'm going to make this as practical as possible. So we'll use some practical application here. Plus, my water is almost gone, so I need something to drink. So here we go. Let me put this back. All right. We all know that there's liquid in this can. Okay, it's unopened. So the liquid is in here. Pepsi Cola is in this can. All right. Why is it in a can? Why can't I just have the Pepsi outside of the can? Well, because it's liquid and it would spill everywhere. I can't contain it. It has to have a container in order to keep it where I need it, where I want it to be. The same is for the gas that's also in here, the carbonation. What happens when I open this up? Well, you're going to hear the gas starting to escape. You can hear it fizzing and it'll make a popping sound even. That's the carbonation escaping. And if I leave this can of soda here for, I don't know how long it takes, just say 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, overnight, whatever. If I come back and try to drink this, the liquid will still be there, but it's not gonna be carbonated anymore. We call it flat. It's a flat soda. Why? All of the gas has escaped. The carbonation has escaped because it needs a container, right? So here we go. And I'll put it right here. Hopefully you can hear it on the mic. Hear it? Yeah, that's all the gas. That's the carbonation instantly is starting to come out. That's why you don't want to, it's okay. You don't have to drink the whole can at one point, at one time. You can make it, last 45 minutes, an hour, maybe even a couple of hours. I don't know. I usually get through one relatively quickly, but you don't want to sit on this for too long unless you enjoy flat soda. Then I guess do just that. I don't. That's good. And look, I know soda's not good for you. I try not to drink it too much, but sometimes I'd like to have a soda. But less bad for you is this soda shop Pepsi, because it uses real sugar rather than that high fructose corn syrup. And you can taste the difference too. I'm going to go on a tangent for that for very long because that's not what this video is about. But anyway, it's good. Anyway, so can soda maintain its pressure outside of the can? No, it cannot. Gases and liquids require a container. All right. How about this? The sun. Now, let me just talk about that again. So again, and I'm going to draw it up here. If there's not a container for liquids and gases, then they're going to escape. They're going to get away. They're going to go elsewhere. All right. So we have our flat Earth here. There's a dome. We know that's still here, even after Noah's flood. One of them fell. So I'm going to put a dotted line. That's the one that fell at Noah's flood. Okay. But there's still one there. This is the third heaven where God resides. All right. And that's us on Earth. All right. And out here, supposedly, is the vacuum of space. Now, if you want to look at it, okay, you still want to believe we're on a globe. Okay. If we're on this globe, you better have something around that globe, to keep the gases in there. Otherwise, those gases are going to escape into your outer space, and we're going to die because all the gases will be gone. Just like when I opened that can of soda. It's a ticking time bomb at this point, in that if I come back to it 6 or 7 hours later, the gas is completely gone. It's gone. You have to have a container. even if it were a globe Earth, which it is not, you would still have to have a container. And we saw in the previous video, Science News acknowledged that in 2014, that there's a barrier, impenetrable barrier, about 11,500 kilometers above the Earth. So no matter if you're looking at the globe or the flat Earth, you have to acknowledge there has to be something there to keep those gases in. And if you're still subscribing to the globe, and at least you can see, okay, we need to have a container to keep those gases in, then how are we getting to the moon way out here? If this is impenetrable barrier, and if you did bust a hole in it, what happens? Well, I didn't split this can wide open, take the whole top of it off. I just had to put one little hole in it where the tab is. That's all you need. And as soon as one small hole is made, those gases are going to escape, just like a balloon. You don't have to tear the whole thing wide open. You can take a pin and put one small hole in it, and it's going to start leaking air immediately. And eventually it will empty itself. You have to have a container. I keep looking to make sure that this light is on, so I know that my mic is still working. Hopefully it still is. So you have to have that. Now, speaking of gases and air and oxygen and whatever else, the sun, fire, if any of you have ever started a fire, campfire, your grill, whatever, it needs oxygen in order to burn. So if the sun, too, is way out here, and I understand that you guys think that the sun's bigger than the Earth. I don't have room, but if the sun is way out here, 93 million miles away, and it's on fire, but it's in the vacuum of space, that means there's no oxygen. How is it burning? How does the sun burn in the absence of oxygen? When again, everything tells us that fire has to have oxygen in order to burn. In fact, when you're trying to put out a fire, if you're using water, then the water is, putting the fire out. But you can also put a fire out by smothering it. You're depriving it of oxygen. That's what coal miners used to do. If they wanted to make sure that there's air down there before we walk down there and suffocate, they'd send down a candle. And if the candle went out, oh, there's no oxygen down there. Don't go there. If they lowered it down there and the fire is still burning, oxygen, we can go down. There has to be oxygen for fire to burn. So how is the sun burning in the vacuum of space with the absence of oxygen? Again, guys, this isn't even like, these aren't like amazing theories. These aren't like existential ideas that we're going to have to ponder for many, many moons or whatever. This is easy. This is easy. You light a fire on my stove or a match, you better have oxygen or it's not going to burn. So how is the sun burning in the absence of oxygen? Again, it doesn't make any sense. However, on our flat Earth model, since the sun is within this canopy right here, there's the sun, here's the moon, and all the little stars. All right. Because it's within the canopy where the gases are contained, it makes sense. It's burning. It can burn because it has access to oxygen. Again, this isn't like rocket science, although we're going to get to that in a minute. But it amazes me the things that people will believe because they've been told it for so long. For so long, just keep perpetuating a lie, saying it over and over, and people will soon accept it as truth. That's brainwashing. That's the epitome of being brainwashed. And people are comfortable with that. I'm okay with being brainwashed because that's the narrative, and that's what my political leaders say, that's what my pastor says, that's what the scientists say. And even though it doesn't make any sense, even though I can visibly see things that counter what they're saying, well, I'm just going to ignore that and just continue to believe that's brainwash. It's part of being a cult. That's what a cult is. Blindly following some belief when there's no evidence. None. There's no evidence for a globe. We talked about that. There's no evidence of spin or curvature or any of those things. We've disproven those things. This is the only thing that makes sense. And for those of you that profess to be Christians, what does your Bible say? I gave you a bunch of verses in part one of this video of the earth being described in the Bible. And all of those verses pointed toward a flat earth, a circle. It's compassed, the face of the earth. It's bounded, the ends of the earth. It does not move. There's a dome. It contains the sun, the moon, and the stars. There's a firmament. All of these things the Bible talks about. And if you profess to be a Bible-believing Christian, then why are you sitting on, on a pile of lies? I just don't get it. Anyway, let's keep going. So, pressurized atmosphere. So, the sun. All right, the science says, let's go to 1 Timothy 6:20. 1 Timothy 6:20. I'm going to show you something. What does the Bible warn us about? All right, the Bible warns us about something. It's very important. 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, this is Paul talking. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. Science, falsely so called. The Bible is warning us against science, falsely so called. It's not really science. That's what that means. It's a pseudoscience. It's science fiction, if you will. The Bible warns us about this. And so many people just, they fall for it anyhow. You guys that believe in a globe, that believe in the heliocentric model, you're believing a lie, and you're believing something opposite of what the Bible teaches. Now, again, I'm not saying that makes you unsaved or you're going to lose your salvation for that, but it makes you a really poor witness. It makes you a horrible witness. If you're doubting what the Bible says, the Bible, when I say the Bible, by the way, I mean the King James Bible. The rest of them are perversions. They don't even count. The King James Bible makes it clear, precisely clear, what our earth looks like. And people choose to deny it anyway. So what does the science say, the so-called science, the science falsely so-called? It talks about this globe that we live on. It talks about the globe. And I want you to see I want you to let me know if you see a pattern here. I was talking about before about supposed demics, pan. Okay, I got to be careful how I say it. Demics, pan, that have come about over the past, just say 20 or 30 years. If you notice, they come about every 6 years. What is 6? What is the number 6? I'll let you figure that one out. But watch this as well. This is what the science falsely so-called, says. The diameter of the moon is 6 times 6 times 60 miles. All right. From Mercury, the sun is 666 times brighter using the inverse square law. Wow. So on Mercury, the sun would be 666 times brighter by using the inverse square law. Have we seen a pattern here yet? The Earth's tilt on its axis, supposedly on the globe Earth, it's tilted, okay? Tilted on its axis. What is the orbital inclination? 66.6 degrees. The polar circles on the globe Earth are 66.6 degrees at north and south latitude. 66.6 degrees at the north and south latitude. All right, the Earth orbits the sun at 66,000 miles per hour. These are their numbers. The Earth's circumference is 600, the marker's 9, times 6 times 6 nautical miles. I'm just going to put NM, nautical miles. The force of gravity is 666 newtons. 666 newtons. I want you to tell me if you see a pattern here in these numbers. Do you see what I see? A lot of sixes there, huh? Again, they put it right in your face, and you choose to ignore it. You choose to turn a blind eye to it. You choose to. All right. And that last one, the force of gravity, which we've already demonstrated there is no such thing as gravity, but according to them, the force of gravity is 666 newtons. All right. Speaking of Newton's third law. I've been waiting to do this one. I'm gonna get me a new blue marker here. Hopefully this one works better. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. All right, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's Newton's third law. All right, so let's take a look at this. Here's our rocket ship. Okay, I'm not an artist, so don't judge that. Okay, so object A, object OBJ. Object A is the rocket. Okay, object A is the rocket. Okay, object B is air. All right. Okay. Force. Use the force, right? Okay. Force A is thrust. I'll keep it in my caps. And this one's not working much better. I hope you guys can see this. Is thrust. Force B. I'm running out of room. Force B is air resistance. All right. Air resistance. Let me get a different marker. I think it's time to buy new ones again. Air resistance. All right. So we've got, okay, let me try this one. All right. So we've got object A. I hope you can see this. Object A, which is the rocket. Object B is the air around it. Force A is the thrust. And then force B is the air resistance. You know that they try to make your car, how do they call that? Not ergonomically. Anyway, you want your car to have the least amount of resistance. That's how you get better gas mileage, right? So they try to make them contoured a certain way. I'm losing the word, doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so because there's resistance against the air, right? If you're even on an airplane, they try to make them aerodynamic. Maybe that's the word. So that it has the least amount of resistance when it's in flight. Okay, so object A, we got all that. So when object A, which is the rocket, exerts force A, which is thrust, then object B. Let me start that over. When object A, the rocket, okay, exerts force A, which is the thrust, on object B, which is the air, object B, which is the air, exerts a force B, air resistance, on object A, which is the rocket. And that sounds like a complicated thing, but in essence, as this rocket moves through the air using this thrust, it's going to have air resistance. The air resistance is going to push back against the rocket. Going back to what we said, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. All right, so you have to have all of that, though, in order for this thing to move. You have to have some resistance to make it move. Like even when you're walking, there's a little bit of resistance as you're walking on ground. And you have to have that. You have to have something in order to propel yourself forward. If I tried to walk on air, if it was even possible to walk through air, that would be really hard because there's not much to push against, right? Whereas on the ground, I have a solid that I can push against to propel myself forward. And like if you're in water, sometimes it's hard to move because there's even more resistance because, again, the water is dense, all right? Density and weight, going back to that. Anyway, But the vacuum of space cannot be an object and hence cannot offer the resistance necessary for movement. Now, this is what I was talking about before. Even if we're on this globe Earth, okay, and we're trying to get out here to the little moon, all right, once you leave our atmosphere, if you could, and you can't, but if you leave the atmosphere, now you're in the vacuum of space, there's no resistance. There's no way to propel yourself forward or backward, doesn't matter, but there's no way to propel yourself. So once you got into the vacuum of space, you'd come to a standstill. And there's nothing to push against. Nothing. So again, even on a globe Earth, it'd be impossible to get to the moon if the moon is outside of this canopy that we have. And if once you got out here, you're in the vacuum of space. There's no resistance. You cannot move. Rockets cannot move through space. That is Newton's third law. You cannot defy that. That's just how it is. You have to have these things. You have to have your object, you have to have air, you have to have thrust, and you have to have air resistance. Well, air is absent in the vacuum of space. If you've already eliminated two of those forces, you have nothing. You can have your object and your thrust, but the thrust has nothing to push against. It's impossible to travel through space. You can't do it. It's impossible. There's just no way to do it. So I ask you again, why are you still believing this stuff? Why are you believing this stuff? When it's in your face, you can look this up for yourself. It's in your face that you cannot travel through the vacuum of space because it defies the laws of aerodynamics. It defies Newton's third law. It just can't happen. Dr. Auguste Piccard, 1931, the first man to reach the stratosphere. Okay? This is 1931, Dr. Auguste Piccard, which is ironic because one of my favorite TV shows is Star Trek: The Next Generation, and their captain is Captain Picard. How about that? Anyway, he was the first one to reach the stratosphere, and I'm going to show you the different layers of the atmosphere here in a moment. I'll have to make some room. But anyway, he got up there and he said it seemed a flat disc with an upturned edge. Now, he's way up there in the stratosphere, and I'm going to show you in a minute. And he's looking down, and he's saying, it looks like it's a flat disc with an upturned edge. And that's what I've been saying, an upside-down Frisbee. Okay? Like an upside-down Frisbee, which makes sense because, again, you need something to contain the water. That's the ice wall. And you also need something to contain the gases. That's your canopy. This is so basic. I mean, I like teaching this stuff, and I hope it turns some people to the truth. I really do. But I almost feel like I shouldn't even have to explain this. This should just be common sense. This should just be something that you observe for yourself and say, hey, those guys are lying. I just don't understand why people want to subscribe to a lie. But anyway, all right, the moon. Rocks do not reflect light. Rocks do not reflect light. Now, if you shine a flashlight or whatever on a rock, you'll be able to see it, okay, because there's light. And sometimes there's those sparkly rocks that are really pretty. And you think, oh, it's reflecting light. No, it's just sparkling. That's it. But if you're in a completely dark room and you had a rock at one end of the room and your flashlight way over here, and you turn the flashlight on, yeah, you'll be able to see the rock, but it's not like the light's going to shine back at you. You're like, oh man, that rock, it's blinding me. It's not. That's never going to happen because rocks don't reflect light. And here's the other thing. Reflected light cannot produce sharp shadows. How many times have you been out in the moonlight, though, and you can distinctly see your own shadow, not like blurry or hazy. It's distinctive. You can see, oh, wow, my fingers and one finger. In the trees, you can see the way the branches are. Distinct, sharp shadows. Reflected light cannot produce sharp shadows. So the moon is not reflecting light. We talked about this at the beginning in part one, how the moon is a luminary. It's not a rock. It's not something you can land on and walk on anyhow. Those are fake. They're fake moon landings. You need to understand that. Rocks do not reflect light, all right? And in reflected light cannot produce sharp shadows. The moon is a luminary, The Bible says that it gives its own light. The sun gives light during the day. The moon gives light during the night. And it gives its own light. The Bible makes that clear. Why would you believe otherwise? Especially those of you that profess to be saved. You profess to be a Christian. The Bible's telling you that the moon gives its own light. Why are you believing otherwise? Why are you believing otherwise? The moon provides its own light. Let me see how long I've been on this video. 30 minutes. I'm doing good. Wow. 30 minutes. I'm only 30 minutes in. Good. Now, I hope you have this because I'm going to have to erase it. Hopefully I don't need it again. I don't think so. Let me erase this because I got to show you something else now. All right. I'm hoping, whoops, I erased Moses. Oh, well. I'm hoping, guys, that you're starting to see just how much you've been lied to and how blatant they are in that. Okay? How they blatantly lie to you and then put the truth right in your face and then laugh at you as you still continue to believe the lie. I mean, that's the most successful piece of manipulation that you'll ever find is when you can convince somebody of a lie, even though you have the truth right in their face. It'd be like, if I took this marker, and hopefully you guys can see, it's a black marker. That's what color the ink would be. And I'm showing you this, but I still can convince you, no, it's blue. Read the book 1984. Read the book Anthem. And you'll start to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. All right? If I can show you this black marker but convince you that it's blue or red, then I have successfully manipulated and brainwashed you, and you're content with that. That's scary. That's really scary. Now, I'm going to show you this right here. I talked about the layers of the atmosphere. All right? So, we have the exosphere, the thermosphere, all right, the mesosphere, stratosphere, we just talked about that, and the troposphere. And supposedly, according to the science falsely so-called, that all exist right next to, without a barrier, the vacuum of space. Make it make sense, okay? It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics to have a gas pressure system next to a vacuum without a container or barrier. Let me repeat that. A violation of the second law of thermodynamics to have a gas pressure system, this, next to a vacuum, this, without some sort of a container or barrier. But that's what they're telling us. They're telling us that we live on a globe, that we have an atmosphere, that part's true, and that we're right next to the vacuum of space, and that's how we're traveling to get to the moon. And that this right here isn't dissipating into this, which is impossible. You have to have a container or a barrier. It's like this. It's still bubbling, so it's still carbonated, but as time goes by, less and less carbon is in here. That's why, again, you don't want to sit on your soda for, 9-10 hours and expect for it to still be carbonated. It's not going to happen. You should drink it in a reasonable amount of time if you enjoy that carbonation. I do. You have to have a container. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I don't think, I'm trying to drive the point home, but some of you I know are so brainwashed, so indoctrinated that you can't think outside. It's like a horse with blinders on. And I think that's where globe people are. The globers are like this. They have blinders on. All they can see is what's directly in front of them. The big the big lie. That's it. And they just continue to follow that big lie. They refuse to take the blinders off and use their peripheral. I don't understand it. And all of this comes down to this right here. Creation versus evolutionism. Creation versus evolutionism. Because all of this rests upon evolution. They want to convince you that nothing exploded, no, nothing rapidly expanded, and everything came from this explosion of nothing. Now, make that make sense. And then all this random stuff just started to magically, mystically started to produce life. And things started to take on form. And something as simple as a one-celled organism, it's impossible for that to occur. And I'm going to show you here in a second. But imagine being so naive and or ignorant and or stupid that you believe that something as complex as the human body just randomly came into place. Just randomly happened. And this goes back to a book review I did not too long ago called Darwin's Black Box. You need to read that. He disproves evolution, and not from a Christian perspective. He does not profess to be a Christian. He is just somebody that's at least open-minded enough to look at the science and say, this isn't adding up. This over here is what adds up. And he says it points to intelligent design. He doesn't say God. Again, he's not writing from a Christian perspective, but he does at least believe there's got to be some sort of design. And everything requires design. Something as simple as this plastic bottle takes design and has to be made. Lightning didn't strike some whatever. I don't know what plastic's made out of. Now to think about it. That's weird. Anyway, lightning didn't strike the ground and then this bottle just appeared with the label and everything. Just, oh, wow, perfect. It didn't evolve over time. The evolution is a lie. Now, I hate to use the term, microevolution, small changes within the same kind. Yes, that does happen. That does happen. But going from one kind to another is impossible. And to think that life sprang from something other than a creator is naive at best. All right? Here's the thing. The chances of amino acids, which are the building blocks of everything, the chances of amino acids randomly forming themselves into proteins to create life are 1 in, like this, 746. Is that what it was? Yep. With 30 zeros behind that. I'm not going to write out 30 zeros. So 1 in 746, whatever that number would be, 746 with 30 zeros behind it. Okay? I don't know what that number is. I'm going to be honest. 746 with 30 zeros behind it. 1 in 746 with 30 zeros behind it. Those are the chances of amino acids randomly forming themselves into proteins to create life. That is what we call, simply put, impossible. Impossible. If somebody told you, hey man, you should play this lottery. The tickets are only $10 each. And you're like, oh, really? What are my chances in winning? Now, if they said 1 in 50, I'm like, that's not too bad. 1 in 100, all right, I can chance that. If they said it's 1 in 746 with 30 zeros behind it, how many tickets do you want? You'd be like, none. That's basically impossible. I'm not going to win that. That's impossible. But yet we're supposed to believe that the reason we're standing here right now today is because of this right here. Where did I put it? Oh, right here. It's impossible for that to happen. Impossible. So why do people believe that? I'll tell you why. They don't want to believe that there's a God. It's not that they don't believe that that's possible. They don't want to believe that there's a God, because if there is a God, then that makes the Bible true. And that means that there's certain rules that I should live by. And they don't want to live by those rules. They don't want for anything to infringe upon their immorality, upon their sinful lifestyles. So if I can pretend like there's no God, well, then all bets are off. That's what it comes down to. Ego and pride. Pride. Pride goeth before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Pride is the essence of all sin. Pride. And there's certain groups that talk about pride. And they are the epitome of an immoral lifestyle. But anyway, that's why people will believe this instead of believing that someone, even if you don't believe in the God of the Bible, which you should, but if you don't believe that at least that there's an intelligent designer, you've got problems, really big problems. Everything you look at has been designed, created. It has to be. It has to be. That's the only thing that makes sense. The only thing that makes sense. Go to the book of Psalms. We're going to look at Psalm 146. Psalm 146. Verse 6. Which made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that therein is, which keepeth truth forever. Of course, speaking of God, praise ye the Lord. Praise the Lord, O my soul. And then it goes on, verse 6, which made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that therein is, which keepeth truth forever. There are some people that profess to be Christians that believe in evolution. Now, again, if they've done this, if they've trusted on Christ and his finished work, they're saved, no matter what they believe. But I don't understand how you can be a saved Christian, read your Bible, and still come to the conclusion that you just randomly appeared here, or believe that God utilized evolution. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible. It says God created. He didn't start with amino acids and wait for them to become protein. He created Adam and Eve whole as human beings, and all the other critters as well. He created them whole. It's one of those things where people want to compromise the Bible to try to fit a narrative that is blatantly lying to you. Also that you won't be ridiculed, and so you look like you're hip and cool or smart or whatever. I don't know what. But people will try to compromise the Bible in order to fit a science narrative that is a blatant lie. To me, I don't know. Again, you're just as saved as I am if you've trusted on the finished work of Christ, but you are a horrible, horrible witness. Horrible witness. Absolutely. And you're losing rewards. You're losing rewards. Absolutely, positively losing rewards. Now, I thought this might go past part 3. But this seems to be... Oh, boy, I think my battery on my phone is about to die. Or something. Yeah. So I'm going to have to wrap this up right now before my battery dies. So I was going to say I was going to do this all in 3 parts, but it's going to have to be 4 because I need to charge my battery. All right, guys, that's okay. There's a good place to start right here. So before my battery dies, questions, comments, leave them below. Again, this is the means to salvation. 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4, Romans 3:25, Ephesians 2:8-9, Ephesians 1:13, and Ephesians 1:7. Check those out for yourself. I will go over them in the next video. I apologize, but I got to charge my battery. You guys take care, and God bless.